Good morning, members, once again. Welcome back from the break. It was a long one because we are really keeping time. A few house rules. We shall have Slido. We have Slido. If you have any questions, comments, an appreciation, anything, you place your comment on Slido. COVID is real. Please wear your mask, wash your hands. Don't carry chairs because the chairs are social distanced. Leave the chair where it is and sit comfortably. Because we are all, it is health and trust, get an HIV policy for a marriage. HIV policy for your marriage. We all know HIV policies, I think, are for women, which is not right. So the session chair today is CPA Pauline Nyapendi. She's a fellow DACO, those of you who come from the Jaduong land. She's a DACO. She comes from Mulanda, Tororo district. She is a female, as you can see. She's Pauline Nyapendi. She's in Bank of Uganda. She's a central banker and a professional accountant with excellent communication, presentation, and analytical skills. I think she works analytical as well. She's a supervision director, seasoned bank examiner, meaning she's a regulator with a wealth experience in licensing new banks, stroke products, vetting directors and senior management for banking institutions, resolution of banks. Is this dissolving them? Oh. Financial consumer protection, new financial products, agent banking, Islamic banking, complaints handling mechanism between customers, bank, and financial inclusion. She's an IMF bank resolution expert and a trainer of trainers. I think when she Googled, she saw her name, right? Good. And she has financial literacy and financial consumer protection. She loves farming. The objective of her life is to utilize my multinational dynamism, skills, and experience together with my ability to work with both independents and teams to harness new competences and challenges in the financial services. She holds a master's in business administration from Helowet University. She's a certified public accountant of Uganda. She has ACCA. She holds a bachelor's degree in commerce. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to welcome CPA Pauline Nyapendi.
Good morning, members. I think you've confirmed that I work analytically. Do you have any doubts?
Please work for us again, and we didn't see you to the podium.
You better know that I'm a regulator, and I may assume that you are one of the banks, and I have so many things I can do to put you in line. And the worst case is closing the bank. But that is the worst case. But that's not the reason why we are here today. Members present here at the venue, And the members who have joined us virtually, I welcome you to this session where we are having Hillary Bainemigisha, popularly known as Dr. Love. You are welcome. You are welcome for this 25th annual seminar. Dr. Love is quite a very young man. According to information we've received, he was recently born in 1967. He's married, but I'm not sure whether to a woman or a man, but he will tell us. He has a number of children and some grandchildren. He holds a master's in social sector planning and management, a degree in arts with education, diplomas in journalism, counseling, health reporting, and many others. He's a professional journalist, social worker, counselor, publisher, HIV/AIDS advocate. Dr. Love, these are quite a number. And of course, a professional teacher. He's the editor in charge of the English products of the informative, or rather information and education hub at the New Vision. He's a columnist on love and gender issues since 2002, and many other editorials he makes. Professional counselor, of course. He's a Rotarian, presenter, TV, radio, and a lion as well. I thought one chooses to be a lion or a Rotarian. He will tell us. Okay. And the publisher of the best of Dr. Love, Sparing the Butterfly, Am I My Partner's Keeper, and many board roles with him. He's a board member of the Virus Research Institute, 2011 to date. He's a population champion, founding member and patron of the Health Journalists Network. And he says he's in HIV activism. He's a media HIV activist, 2008 to date, a member of the Vaccine Advocacy Resource Group, 2015 to date, and gender relations experience. He's quite experienced. Please, members, join me to welcome Dr. Love to tell us his package today.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be here. This is my second time, and I would like to express my gratitude for being invited again to talk to people we fear when we are at work, people who have the pain and can make and break you. I also thank the chair for that honorable introduction. You are very far away. I wanted to see whether I was scaring you with my credentials, but you're far away. I can't see all of you. But I also thank you for being bold enough to hold such a get-together in these times, these COVID times, which then inform the topic I'm supposed to present today. Usually I begin with this, and it has already been told to you. Few things have changed. When I presented to the accountants in 2016, I had published the book, The Best of Dr. Love. After that, I've published Spearing the Butterfly, which tries to give solutions to infidelity, because many people have tried to fight infidelity and have failed because it flies like a butterfly. They have used the spear to kill a butterfly, and you cannot kill a butterfly with a spear, although a spear is a lethal weapon. So you have to first study infidelity, and then you know how to kill it. That is the same principle I'm using for this this presentation, that to help families recover from COVID, you must first study what happened. Then I also have, am I my spouse keeper? Because we have a crisis. I've been counseling couples for over 15 years now. The crisis is that we have a whole broad spectrum of types of marriages where one spouses want to be responsible for each other, and where in another spectrum, they need measurable independence from each other. So we are asking, is it helpful to always know, to always be in charge of your spouse's movement and sexual services? Or should you keep some distance? Today, it's about coronavirus and family. And I want to start with that quote: fear nothing in life, just understand it. When I was young, very young, in the primary school, we had big boys who were in school because they were scared of paying graduated tax. And they used to tell us a lot of things about sex. And we used to get scared because they would make it so intricate, so difficult that you'd wonder, will I ever manage? We were so scared of sex because they made it an ABC kind of cram work. And when we grew up, we had to just understand it. Now, sex no longer scares me because I understand how it works. So I used to fear it. So I no longer fear it. Why? Because of that understanding. So what is family? I'm going to rush through this because I want us to interact more. All of us know family. We have parents and children. Sometimes we have families without children. We have single parent families. We have spouse only families, yes. We have children only families, especially in places where parents have perished. We have the nucleus, we have the extended and stuff like that. Now, family, I've put 3 quotes. I forgot to put the people who say them. Certainly it's not me. Your conquest will not be your tombstone. Your family will. Showing the importance of a family. That this family links us to the past and the future. And also we travel the world in search of what we need. Finally, when life goes out of us, they bring us back home to family. So family is called a basic unit of society. And when COVID came, it had to suffer. It has functions which include emotional support of the members, where there is love, care, and comfort. There is practical support of food, housing, clothing, medicine. You're sure you make it your role to provide these to your children. It is the haven and host of sexual activity and reproduction, where you have measurable control of your partner's sexual services. And actually, we want to be the policeman and policewoman of our partner's sexual services. There is social identity. It gives you who you are. I am so and so's parent. Some of us who had parents who had clout are still finding it difficult to introduce ourselves or define ourselves without mentioning our parents. And we are also trying to make it difficult for our children. Unless they say, I am Hillary's son, there are certain sections of people who will not know them, but it gives you identity. And it socializes children. It packages a child in a way that is acceptable culturally, and then hands over the child to the world. It also empowers the young ones with education, not necessarily formal, but even informal. Then it has economic functions because our families sometimes are a springboard. Sometimes your family decides how rich you will be in future. There are people who make it without family help, but many do need family. And so it's a launch pad into the future, into the society. And it is the official host of marriage, of romance, of sex. No one will accuse you if you have these within your own confines of the family. And that also brings fuel to loyalty. The family loyalty comes from that loyalty that started its journey on a bedroom bed where there was romance and sex, and hence the production of the future generation. In Uganda, we have many families, but this topic is wide. It didn't confine me to Uganda, but we'll try to restrict to Uganda. We have basically male-dominated families where the male is a breadwinner and females are homemakers. But in the elite, where you belong in the elite group, you'll find a bit of sharing of responsibilities, and sometimes where the woman is the breadwinner. But all these had suffered an impact because of COVID, as we shall see. We have extended families sometimes, we have nuclear families sometimes, especially in urban centers, and we have single-headed families, and according to the statistics I saw in Uganda, 31% of households are female-headed. Generally speaking, we have parental dictatorship, especially when children are young. This is different from other countries where, for instance, a child has a say and can even divorce parents. The average size, according to 2019 statistics, was 4.5 members, but we have parents with 1 child or 0 children, and parents with 10, 13, 14, and above. I was surprised to find that the monthly income was put at 400 and something. I thought it was a little bit less. And then we have gallery families. These are families pretending to be families. They are playing to the gallery. Outside, they look like families, but inside, they have a cutthroat competition. They are fighting each other. There is a lot of chaos. But you see, humanity was created with that conspiracy tendency. You meet a couple and you think their love was made in heaven. You start wondering why yours can't be like them. They are holding hands, laughing, but they are hiding a lot. Behind closed doors, there is a lot of war, much more war than Bobby Wine riots. COVID, I won't talk about much. COVID, most of you know, it's a coronavirus disease declared in China. I think this is obvious. And efforts to contain the outbreak. And the results, isolation, stigma, deaths, stuff like that. So we try to protect families by hiding them at home in the stay-home soap and lockdowns. So what happened when that happened? To understand the impact of coronavirus on families, we must know the nature of a family. Most literature you'll find is where a family is a foundation of society, where a family makes society. But what in society protects a family? The family exists on pillars which are in society, without which this family will fall, break, or become dysfunctional. To become a good family, it requires around 10 pillars. I used in this illustration 5, but we shall see more. The individuals that make a family matter. The individuals decide the quality of the family. The ambience, the relationship, the way they deal with each other. The individuals, we talk about the personal characteristics. Then the ambience, we talk about the interconnections. How connected are they? Then the community is the context in which the family exists. That community also affects the family. They are relief valves. The family is a boiling point at that level. It requires pressure releases. That is why people go to bars, people go to gyms, people go to church, others go to football, others get partners outside for pressure release, so that when you come back home, you are calm. You don't bring the frustrations home. That is the relief valves that hold the family together. And in my book of Spearing the Butterfly, I explored how infidelity sometimes can be helpful to the main family of the person who is cheating because of this pressure release. But with the lockdown, all these pressure releases were closed. No church, no football, no bar, no access to a girlfriend, no access to a boyfriend. So you all brought this frustration back to the family, and we shall see what happened. Economic pillar also affects the quality of a family. That is the way it is insulated from the vicissitudes of this world. And those are the pillars. We have also, we will see them more. So we'll start with the individuals in the family. For a good family, you will need the character of the house head first, then the character of the partner. And we assume these characters will help format the characters of the members of the rest of the family, who are the children and sometimes the non-biological children. But the way the individual characters are decide the way they will fit with the rest. The level of motivation to be family also matters. That is why should I consider this family to be a good family? If people are not motivated enough, they will break the family or they'll form some kind of dysfunction. The training, your families, you people who are masters and doctorate people, you've gone through training and exposure. It cannot be the same as a person who didn't study. This is about exposure. This is about discovering that there is a lot more beyond your compound. The ambition of the individuals. You'll find families where my father died and in his will, he wrote that he will not be happy if one of us is very successful and another is very poor. We must move together or stay together, even in economic achievements. And I found that very wise. But you'll find families where we have black sheep and white sheep. And color is not, I'm not being discriminative, but you see, black sheep is a reference to people who in a family have failed to make it and are inconveniencing those who have made it. So this happens because the family didn't move together. Maybe because their ambitions were different. One wants to be a president, one wants to be the biggest storyteller on the village. Then I brought last the selflessness of an individual. I put there that curve. We all are selfish, but the level matters. If you look at the axis, you are accountants, you know what X and Y means. If you see up there on selfishness, a person who is very selfish, on that up where I put X, his selflessness is very little. So he's basically selfish. When he's making plans, he's thinking about himself. In fact, there is a fund that selfish people, those who are on that X, When they are having sex, I'm sure all of us are adults. And when they are having an orgasm during sex, they call upon their names. Hillary, Hillary, Hillary. Not only to cheer themselves, but to celebrate the victory. They even forget that they are with a partner. But selfless people, where I put a star, will call upon the name of a partner, celebrating that victory. But the best place to be is where I put a box. You must have some selflessness, balancing with selfishness, such that you want things for yourself, but you also want them for others. If you have more of those in a family, they will keep it together. Then when we come to the relationship ambience within the family, it creates loyalty. The family starts communicating. They see value addition, and they want to give value addition to the others. They find the family very relevant, and they keep memories of family, and that motivates their need for that family. They want it to work. So how family are you? The answer depends on the ambience of the family. The third pillar was the nature of the family. We used to call it parenthood. But at a funeral recently, my Archbishop introduced a good word that I captured immediately. He said, parentcraft. Most of us are parents. We know parenthood. We know how to be parents. But the craft of being a parent is lacking in many of us. And COVID and lockdown and closure of schools has exposed many parents. They didn't know what to do with children. The parent craft, the ability to manage children, especially when they are at adolescent age. You may actually never know you are a good parent until you are tested by adolescents. And when you have children following closely each other, if you ever get 3 children becoming adolescents in the same time, you will sweat plasma. You will innovate, you will not understand, they will gang up against you, they will not be the little boys and girls you used to know. And then you'll have to use maturity and parent craft. So the ability to keep the family together and to stop the big ones from polluting the young ones, that is parent craft. But keeping them with that ability to express themselves, not the parental dictatorship that we inherited from our traditions. How are they team players? How do they cooperate with each other? You find families where, as I told you, we have very rich ones and very poor ones. You go to a brother and say, I want to talk to your brother who is named D. Then the brother says, hi, if you want to talk to this one, you go through the other person, but you are the brother. For me and him, we don't. That's what I got. But how are they a team? How are they siblings? And then when I was here, I talked of something called karo, the integration of people into oneness. Even when they are different, when you mix karo, you mix water and flour, which is solid and liquid, to make one entity that doesn't look like either of them. So how does a family operate as karo? How integrated is it? And what is the motivation for them to be integrated? So it also depends whether if the family is monogamous or polygamous, because that feeds into the motivation of oneness. The family, does it have mutual respect? Does it have mutual support? Then, of course, all relationships come with power politics. How are they handled? So is it a functional unit? That if you answer this, it becomes a pillar that supports or does not support a family. How about the culture? Culture defined power relations where the man was made the head, but in modern societies, we have women who are heading and deciding policy and direction. I don't know that they are children. Okay, finally, yes, when we grow up, we take over from our parents, and we decide we start being their parents. What are the norms and ethics? How does a parent and a child relate to each other culturally and religious? Because religion now has entered into our culture and brought certain acceptable ethics. What are the obligations of the father, of the child? What are the beliefs? The role of in-laws is also good because they are also, they are also a shock absorber of family situations. Sometimes they help the family in counseling or guiding and even being there. If I see my in-laws here, there are examples I will not give. But they are not policemen. They are not going to arrest me. But because they are in-laws, I cannot talk of, but I can't see all of you. If you are my in-law, you have to forgive me and allow me to be free. So, community. How does community support a family to be? There are social expectations of a community, especially depending on your, like when you go home, you people who are accountants at Christmas, there is a way they expect your family to be smart, possibly in a car, then orderly. You cannot fight over if an MP comes and says, Barete masks. They don't expect your family to fight over those masks because you are empowered, you are from Kampala. The social expectations, society decides what you should be, and sometimes you find that there is a propensity that compels you to be what society wants. Then society also puts stigma on failure. You'll find that up to now, there are places where people who have come out of marriages don't find it easy in society because they say you failed, you failed. Failure of children is blamed sometimes on the whole family and specifically on parents. And that then they create a stigma. And that stigma also guides the family in how to succeed. The common friends, if the children and the parents and the two individuals who make up parents have common friends, it becomes much easier for that family to stay together, other than each one living an independent life. And then the context in which the family exists. Is it a peaceful context? Is it a context that expects too much or very little? That also matters. When we come to the socioeconomic status, I put that picture to show that that's a family, that's their jet. They are moving, maybe going somewhere. And some woman told me, I was counseling, she says, I get nothing from my husband. And yet, he is not a good guy. He mistreats me. At least if we had ABC, I would have no problem. Meaning that what the man has or what the woman has might also help the family to stay together. The marriage that succeeds must have value addition. What value am I getting from you? What value are you adding to your partner? If there is that economic, and the values are many, but there is also the economic value. A family that adds economic value to each other as parents, also as children, will stay together in spite of the hardships that each of the members is giving. So we strive to make money, we strive to make it possible that when our family members want to go to hospital, they go. When they want to go to school, they go. When Christmas comes, they are smart. That economic value of value addition, and also what we call alternative utility, is where you have stopped getting love from your husband or wife. You are just coexisting. When you want happiness, you don't expect it from them. When you come home, he goes to the TV, you go to movies, he goes to news and sports. Then you meet in bed. These days we have big bed, someone is the other side, 3 miles apart. In the morning, you are waking up very early. And if you want happiness, you go elsewhere. Alternative utility is where a couple or two people in that marriage have ceased to find satisfying utility from a partner, so they get it from elsewhere. not necessarily sexually, but from friends. They are happier with friends. They are happier with the gym. They are happier at church. They are happier elsewhere than with a partner. That is what we call alternative utility. You stay in the marriage because you're happy, but that happiness is not because of your partner. It's because of alternatives. Then playing for the gallery. I told you families and marriages especially are good pretenses. You package your marriage well for society, while inside things are bad. But everyone presents marriage as a good thing. That is why young people rush into the marriage, expecting that marriage to make them happy. They reach there, it doesn't. So they also get recruited and start deceiving unmarried people that this is heaven. So they also rush into heaven and don't find it. Then they transform and deceive other unmarried people. So in a way, married people keep showing us heaven because they are hiding the details of heaven. And family also gives you social status. And that what becomes a motive for the family to exist. I talked about pressure release valves. You go to religion, you pray, or you talk to your pastor and get counseling, and you come back happier than you left. You go to friends, you hang out at clubs, you come back with less pressure. You take alcohol, you go to bars or to clubs, you go to sports activities or to watch football. I put cheating uncomfortably, but unfortunately it is true. Some of the side dishes help a family to survive. And then we also have travel, holiday, what. These things make us, but unfortunately, coronavirus came in and it destroyed these pillars in this way that I'm going to give. How did it affect these pillars? It did, in the following ways. There are many, I just chose these because I thought it would help me cover as much as possible. Coronavirus brought a lockdown. It brought closure of schools. It brought increased exposure of family members to each other. It brought sickness and death. It brought lack of services. It brought mental stress. And this is how it affected the family. It impacted on the family. The first one is lockdown effects. There was loss of income. In jobs, in employment, some people, their salaries were reduced. Others lost their job completely. Business, clients reduced. There are some few people who made money, fine, granted, but there are many who did not. In fact, in today's paper, I saw that poverty increased by to 28% from 18% because of the lockdown. Yes, it's there. Now, poverty is not a good thing when you are the head of a family. When you are a child, because if you are the head of a family, you are supposed to provide and protect. Now, when you cannot, it affects you, especially your self-esteem. It affects your ability to be the head of family. As people are complaining, as people are showing you dissatisfaction, it really affects your esteem to a way that we shall see. And in many places, it even affects your sexual virility. You can no longer function well when you are used to being boss and having money. Incidentally, they say that when money is in the pocket, its closest neighbor, for a man, its closest neighbor is a penis. He gets to feel that there is money in the pocket. One, he gets company, but two, he starts giving you ideas. Hey, we have money. Why don't we do this? We have money. Why don't you do this? And when it is not there, it will be bored. It will go to sleep. Even when the time of the altar comes, you'll have problems. And we have had a lot of serious domestic violence because couples, when the lockdown started, I am on record to have predicted that it is not going, because people are saying at last, men and women are going to get a chance of being together for some time because work had separated families. I feared that they no longer know how to be together. Once you do not know, you need a motivation to learn at our age, especially. But when you have factors like poverty, it's difficult to be a man when you cannot fend for your family. When there is food insecurity, and when you are an accountant and you are adding and subtracting, you know the balance sheet. You are spending, but you don't know the income is not coming in. All that makes the whole structure problematic and very repressive. You start borrowing and going into the red. Sometimes people sold property and general scared of the future. I know some families which migrated to rural areas. Some thought it was easy. I had a friend who had just retired. So he moved with the whole family to Fort Portal. But he was saying it's also not easy. He had spent some years in Kampala. He didn't know the rural dynamics. The rural areas have their own dynamics. You must fit in. You must be relevant. He was also suffering from there. And unfortunately, some people abandoned their families because of loss of income. They left their families to fend for themselves. And unfortunately, the majority of these are men who used to be heads of households. I have seen men abandon wives because they have got twins, just twins, and say, now I don't have money. Why did you have 2 children instead of 1? Who told you to get 2? And so we had also women-headed families because of the lockdown, where, for example, it was a polygamous arrangement, but the man was locked up inside A. So side B is not used to being a head of a family, but the man is not there. He cannot come. So the woman of the house has to learn to be the head of the household. We also had frustrations. All these I've explained in an earlier slide come to affect us like this. The frustration you get from the lockdown because loss of markets, there are no services. Those who had pregnant mothers and wives know what it meant during the lockdown. Working from home was also not easy. It was frustrating. Power went off, the internet went off, we lost the data. Some of us are not so computer friendly and internet friendly. All those things were increasing frustration. There were no pressure release. You couldn't go out to a bar to drink or to talk to a pastor. And then they were avoiding avoidable deaths. Leave alone coronavirus deaths. There were deaths out of diseases because the health workers were not available. Hospitals were not working. Others were working at half capacity. Maybe not you, but in many places of people who are not empowered, there were deaths that could have been avoided. And people were unable to bury because you hear your cousin, your brother, your sister has lost someone, you can't go, there is social distancing. All those fed into frustrations. The polygamous people, I don't know how they managed it, but there was that frustration also by either the men involved and their wives, or the wife involved and her husbands. That brought stress, anxiety, depression, yet there were not even services for mental accommodation. It bred into harsh parenting. Parents started being harsh to their children. It comes naturally. When inside you is boiling, it is very difficult to compose yourself, especially when this child is asking for more data. You gave what you think was enough. 2 GB in the morning. They come back. Then I want more data. Where do you eat it? Do you do what? You start quarreling over small things. Some small crumb of bread falls down from the dining table. Previously, you'd just kick or step on it. Now that becomes an issue. You people, you are stupid. You don't know where money is coming from. You see, you are wasting bread. They tell you sugar is finished. You want to start counting spoons. But because you are not a bad parent, you are harsh because of those frustrations. And not only as a parent, but also as a partner. One reason why this lockdown did not help couples to improve their relationships was because the underlying frustrations made it difficult for partners to be romantic to each other. And the gender differences also came in. Women naturally are designed to think about life, to worry about infection. Men instead worry more about resources. So they couldn't get a serious conversation going because each one thought the paramount important thing to worry about was different. So in the end, there was a clash. And most of the time, it boiled into violence. Sometimes physical violence, but we also had emotional violence. And still that one is under lockdown. Now, the gender effects that I was talking about. Now, in a typical home, even in Kampala, the role of looking after a home is not divided equally. The burden of care falls more to the woman than the man, and it's a cultural hangover effect. Now, the man and the woman are both home, but there are many things. There is cooking, there is teaching kids because they were homeschooling, there is hygiene, there is comfort, providing comfort and ambience, leisure. There are many roles in a home, but men tended to leave it all to women. And women got exhausted and demanded that a man should also play a part. Then they started saying, you go no musomesa nze sibimanye ebyo bya geography bye babuuza pampas. I don't even remember. So they started quarreling over who will do this, who will do that. And then in the end, because men have a tactic, they first pretend not to care. And the woman, when the woman starts believing it, then they get an off, then the woman takes over. You see, if the woman held on longer, maybe the man would care. I remember one time at home, when I was still young, we had to wake up and take kids to school. So I said, now, I was tired of it. I told my wife, let us do shifts. I take them 1 week, you take them another week. No, actually, I'm telling the wrong story. She's the one who was taking them. So she said she was tired. I was supposed to take 1 week and she takes another week. I said, no. Me, I am busy doing other very important things. Because I wanted that morning sleep alone. I had gotten used to it. So she said, I am not taking them. This is your turn. I said, who decided? We didn't agree on turns. You take them. So in the morning, the kids woke up, prepared themselves, but there was no driver. They started coming. Daddy, we are late. Hey, tell your mother. Mommy, we are late. Tell your daddy. Daddy, we are late. Tell your mother. So I was about to break down and take them. Then she broke down and she took them. So it was a playing game, but as we shall see later, the COVID exposed parents, they started fighting before kids. And because of the burden, there was no equal share. Then we had an unfortunate issue, because I'm going to talk about it later, the sexual effect, where you'll find that uncles or cousins in the same home, started abusing sexually their nieces, and there was sex going on, which was incest. But the abuser and the accuser, especially if, and they are choosing, if the victim did not want it, they were forced to stay in the same home. The psychological impact of seeing a person who is your uncle, but who is staying with you, but at night he comes to your bed and demands sex from you, and during the day he participates in parenting, that psychological torture is traumatic. But it was lockdown, where there was a lot of incest. And I have told people that families hide a lot of things. You only need an unnatural currents. In Nyankere, we say that if it shines one day in the middle of the night, we would see a lot of unfortunate things. So one time when HIV had come, that's when some people started getting surprised when Catholic priests were getting HIV. They said, but these are not supposed to play sex. That is when statistics would come showing that monogamous couples had the highest incidence. But they are monogamous. What do they want? So these pandemics exposed certain things in homes. We had a lot of incest. Some developed into pregnancies. And then we had parental participation in the abortions of their children, because you are pregnant by your brother or your cousin or your uncle. So how will society see it? So we must remove it. So you participate in your child's abortion. Sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't. But if it goes well, the lasting impression you put on the child by having participated in this, and then you do nothing. You do nothing. Some parents even blame the victim for this, yet the victim is just a victim. So we had victims being locked up with abusers for a long time. We had violence, physical, sexual, emotional, taking place within the same roof. We had incest that I told you, sexual abuse of house helps. You see, there are men who are used to girlfriends they could no longer access. And when a man is used to variety, they will start looking at, but the way I also have this house girl. Maybe, let me try. They start harassing house girls, and some succeed. And then it brings a problem. And also, there is something that people still don't understand. When a man, I'm using a man, but okay, let me use a woman. When a wife has a boyfriend, it is most likely she will fall in love the other side, because here they play loyalty. But you are in a lockdown, you can't access your boyfriend. So you start getting worried that he is not waiting for you. He must get another woman. When the lockdown ends, will I find him there? Will I find her there? You can't call because your partner is there. So you go to the toilet, lock the toilet, or I don't know where you go, under the bed or on top of the roof to do pretentious repairs. You call, they don't pick. Now, when you're cheating and you call a cheat and they don't pick on that break, there is tension, because when you go back to your wife, the other person might find a missed call and call you back. So you pray to God, let them pick. And you might send a message, okay, I'll call you back, don't call. But they will call before they read the message. So the fear that your cheating partner is going to move on can cause a frustration when you are in love. Because some of the people invest also in their cheating partners. It becomes an investment. You got this woman from school, you have built her a house or rented a big house for her. Now you fear that the same house, your own money is going to be used to host sexual services being given to someone else who is not you, under your roof that you're paying rent for. It can be frustrating. but you have nothing to do. Then you vent this frustration through harsh parenting and harsh partnering. So I quoted this, came through counseling. A woman was saying, I am doubling as both a man and a woman in this family. After this epidemic, the first thing I want is to leave this man because the perceived usefulness is not there. And all those are lockdown effects that affect us gender. Now, this one is also baffling to me. There was digitalization of sex, especially in the developing world, especially in Europe, where even in America, North America, where the pandemic was hitting them so hard. The city of New York actually released the guideline on sex during the lockdown. And they were saying, please avoid interpersonal relationships, at least masturbate or do cyber sex to hold on, to release pressure until we get off the lockdown. So we got cyber sex. There was a lot of, when you look on the internet, there was a lot of traffic. There are a lot of sex toy companies grew in terms of clientele and income. People went on not only using the dolls and dildos, but they improved them to become teledolls and teledildos. And the manufacturing person, the one I read about, was insisting that he did this for separated couples, where you connect with your wife. Okay, I connect with my wife who is maybe in Canada. She gets a dildo, I get a doll, but the doll is wired to behave, to express the same emotions my wife will be expressing in the real time. So we can have sex virtually. I have it with a doll, she has it with a dildo, but pretending it's me who is there. We had 3D virtual sex, which is now called coming. So next time they ask you, what is coming? Don't say you don't know. Coming is a new word. There is texting, I think some of you know it. Phone sex, webcam sex. But also, I put that picture of a young kid who is hiding. He's supposed to be studying, but the parents brought data, but he's on digitalization of sex. And we did not have time to supervise our children. They learned these things on the computers. They started using them and asking us for data. So that was on one topic of lockdown effects. So I go on the second one, which is increased spouse exposure. It is a good thing to be with your wife and your husband for some time. People pay money to go on holidays and be together. But the modern demand for resources has made it difficult for couples to be together. So they have to create time and pay for it. So the lockdown and coronavirus handed us a gift. Stay together for at least 2 weeks. And we failed. People started feeling the lack of privacy. And I always say, you cannot be married and you be independent. But we have many marriages. I say we have many weddings, but very few marriages. Marriage is measured by how comfortable are you with less privacy? You understand? How comfortable are you with a situation of less privacy when you are with your partner? That determines the measure of addition, the marriage that you are. But if you have secrets, if you have places where your partner can't access, then you have privacy. Then the lockdown had to come in and expose that you are less married than society thought. So people started saying, I have lost privacy. Partners started demanding to check my phone. Let me check your phone. Who is that one? One network tell you, whoa, why are you going to pick your phone from the other side? People even started taking other people's bags because they got suspicious by the behavior of a person who has lacked privacy. And then they discovered the secrets. I am aware of 3 people, men, who discovered that their wives had land elsewhere. One even had a house and tenants. They didn't know. It's not a crime. But now the question is, why didn't you tell me? But because tenants had a problem or someone wants this, then they called or sent a message, then they demanded, but which title? Others, the title actually is in there. One of them, the title has been in the bedroom. But because he's a man who comes in to sleep and goes out to look for money, he doesn't find a lot of things in the house. We sleep with a lot of evidence of what we can call cheating, not necessarily of sex, because this person you are supposed to be one with has things you don't know. So they started discovering secrets of property, of children, that someone had children elsewhere, of girlfriends, boyfriends. Those secrets came because of increased exposure to each other. Then sexual disappointments. You see, I wrote warning couples when the lockdown started. There is something what we call the Courage effect. I don't know how many people know the Courage effect. Courage was a president of the United States. And in those days, there was a trade fair. So he was moving around the stalls. I think he was urbanizing. He found at one stall, there was chicken. A farmer had chicken, but there were many chicken and one cock. So he said, but why do you have more females than males? The farmer says, no, I don't need males. This one cock can work on all these chicken. So, okay, what happened? The wife came first. The first lady was moving away from the husband. So the first lady asked the farmer, and the farmer explained that this one cock can work on these females. So the wife was interested. He asked the farmer, how many times can this cock have sex in a day? The farmer said, even 10 times, to 10, 15. Then she came closer and told the farmer that when the president comes here, I want you to do me a favor. You tell him that this cock can have sex 10 times. So the first lady moved off. When Courage came, he was told that your wife told me to tell you that this cock can have sex 10 times. Courage said, oh, I see. Did you tell her that it was with different chicken, not one? So the farmer told the media, and then it went into the public, it was discussed, and then one university did a research. And the findings were called the Courage effect. That naturally, one man being exposed to one woman will not sustain sex for a long time. He will have sex first time, rest for 30 minutes, have sex for second time, then he will need rest for maybe 3 hours. After the third time, he will need a full day. After the fourth time, he might need a week. Men are fired by novelty. Too much exposure to the same person is not arousing for men. And this is natural, it's not their fault. And I wrote about the Courage effect to guide women to be understanding that this man may not be so virulent all the time because you are the same person. Women are better. They can have sex as many times with the same person. But men will lose the initial attraction. They will need to vary it. And that sometimes affects the family. So Too much exposure to each other brought that problem. The women, some women were demanding for sex that men could not give just because they have already given. But we did it yesterday. Hey, how many hours ago was that? I need it now. And for a man, you can't just have sex. The body must be mobilized. So it brought a problem. And a problem is when a man fails to have sex, it affects his psychological makeup because men are wired to draw their self-esteem from their sexual virulence. So they start wondering, am I man enough? They start hiding. They start hiding from the bedroom to watch football, including teams they have never had. But they are trying to make sure they are not in the bedroom because the wife might get ideas. But on the other end of the scale, we also had a situation where it was the woman who was not used to that frequent sex, and it was the man who wanted it. Then the woman faked a headache, then it ended, then it was stomach ache, then it ended, then leg ache, then it ended. Then I don't know what, started praying for menstruation to come, it didn't come. So in the end, too much sex that we are not used to became a problem, not a fun. And this was under the lack of services like family planning. So I am sure many people got pregnancies they hadn't planned. So then we get to gender differences. There are gender differences you need to understand, or you'll fail to manage them. Gender differences sometimes make it difficult for us to communicate. The way we perceive phenomena is different as males and females. So you'll find that while a woman is so worried about life and infection and hygiene, cleanliness, the man is so worried about money, resources. And so when they are having an argument, the man looks at saving money for the rainy day. The woman looks at prioritizing health. And then it becomes, no one is looking, the bottom line is different. So the argument is not coming together. Then that becomes a source of conflict. So one time I was dropping my kids to school. The girl was in P2, the boy was in P4. Along the way, we had an accident. We knocked a border person who fell down and started wailing. The young girl, they talked at the same time. The young girl said, "Is he hurt?" But the boy said, "Is our car safe?" That shows the natural propensity of the gender. The man is looking at resources. Our resources, are they intact? The woman is looking at life. Whether the car is destroyed, it doesn't matter, but did the man die? And these gender differences come into play when people are together. Because women are caucusing, men are operating on a hierarchy to impress others. You find that brings a conflict in the home. And all these things bring stress. And I quoted this, that stress makes couples overly critical of each other. We tend to blame each other. In the psychology of bereavement, when a couple loses a child, and it has happened, even when the child was expected to die, the mother will blame the father will blame the mother. You didn't take him to hospital early enough. You didn't bring, I told you this. It is a way of healing by finding someone to blame. But we misunderstand it and blame back. So we become overly critical or argumentative. And that's not an arena in which to solve problems. So that also caused a crisis in homes. Because of peace, we had people who are suffering silently. But suffering silently is building pressure inside you because you have no pressure release. There was violence, and we had reports of suicide. We had reports of spousal murders. Some people killed each other. We had a bigger motivation to cheat because suddenly we discovered that our partners were not worthy us. We are not sure about birth rates. Maybe in future we shall find out 9 months later whether we got a lot of children. But over time, couples can become less satisfied with their partners and less satisfied with their relationships. Thirdly, about schooling. Schooling at home brought increased demand, but on the resources which were dwindling, especially data, and you are not sure whether data was going for school. Parents started seeing children as problems, not assets, but especially accountants who know income and expenditure. Income was not there or was limited, but expenditure was going so much, and so children became liabilities. Children also clashed with parents because they don't care whether there is COVID or lockdown. You are my father, you're supposed to give me this. There was disruption of routine. And when routine is disrupted, there is also the inconvenience of adjusting. Disruption of privacy, especially for parents who used to have fun when kids were at school. That stopped being possible. Fight for over a remote control. Fight over a chair, small things. There was also loss of education for some of our families which were not able to get that and do online schooling. Even like in my village, when the Ministry of Health sent education material, they would send one paper at the Gomborora and tell parents, you have to photocopy. And there was no photocopier at the Gomborora. So they have to pay money to the person at the Gomborora to go to the trading center that had the power photocopy. So many parents gave up. So we had children who just stopped schooling. And then they became child labor. Okay, child labor is contentious because often we see our children, we see it as training to get our children to work. But it becomes child labor when a child is given work that is above the level of its age. So we saw child labor. So in the end, all this brought a coercive cycle. Parents being harsh to their children, children also being harsh to each other. And then in the end, we create a whole cycle of coercion in a home, mental stress, parents disagreeing with each other, lack of parentcraft. The parentcraft I was talking about, especially in handling adolescents who are very demanding, but we are locked up together, brought a lot of problems. And unfortunately, we had parents clashing before their children. When parents clash before their children, it's very frustrating to children. And sometimes it's unavoidable. Now, no schooling brought sexual effects. We had a lot of teenage pregnancies, especially in the peripheral districts of Mubende, Toroko, all that belt actually in the mid, from the west coming like a crescent surrounding the Uganda region up to the east. We had a lot of teenage pregnancies. I tried to get statistics, but they were different, so I gave them up. Now, a child would get pregnant, and that would sometimes lead to abortion, sometimes with the parents' participation. Then we got children getting pregnant, and then the parents forced them to marry the person who was impregnated them. So we got child marriage, forced marriages, but we also got children eloping because they are tired of the stress in a home. So they go to where they think a man will love them, and they go and get elope with other people. We had a lot of incest, and this brought abortions, sometimes deaths during the process. The children who got pregnant or got married fell out of the school system, and you know the lasting implications. We had parental accusations and conflicts before children. All those brought anxiety, stress, and depression. And of course, online learning, which brought what I said, what I talked about, the risk of pornography. But even online, there is hateful content, there is illegal content. There were political distractions, not only political, entertainment. You'd give a child data, but instead of studying data, you find they are using data for other things, following their icons, music, what. Then there was transactional sex. If you couldn't give enough data, or if you ration your data, 1 GB must take a week. Then the child goes to a boyfriend to get more data. Why don't we chat? I don't have data. Then they give her data. But things are rarely free in this country. So she pays back with sex. And it becomes transactional sex. So we have a divide. The urban haves and the rural have not, which will be reflected in education, because those who had continued schooling, those who didn't have really dropped out. Then we go to lack of services. I put that picture to show a traditional birth attendant. Many people couldn't get maternal health care, even general health care. We had old age care. The problem of old age care in this country, if you have a father or if you have looked after a father, it is all centered in Kampala. You often enough have to bring your parents to Kampala, because that's where they are specialized doctors and medicine to handle those old age concerns, diabetes, pressure, cancer, heart problems, all those Kampala based. But now the services were not there. And our old parents were suffering in the village. We couldn't even bring them. We had protracted diseases, like I told you, cancer, diabetes, which need drugs. When drugs would get finished, there was a problem in replenishing. There was virtually no mental care, mental health care, and yet that is what we needed most. Family planning wasn't there, and that's why I'm supposing that we shall have a lot of children. But even security, legal care, police, that even fed into violence, because people who beat their partners knew that there is curfew. Toina Joraga. Police they are busy chasing after money to come and say, I beat my wife or I beat my husband. Then we had all those support systems, like in HIV. People needed to go and replenish their ARVs. They could not. Even in maternal care, we have antenatal, which was not possible. All these, then they were those on remedial treatment, like addicts, for example. When you're curing addiction, for example, of alcohol, or even drugs, you need protracted care that lasts like 6 months. And that was disrupted. So people failed to complete cares. Then, unfortunately, there was sickness, there was death. I put that picture because it is sad when you lose a person, a parent, a child, a close relative, and you are not able to bury them. But you stand like in a stadium and you watch people bury your person. It has a lasting effect. By the way, you would lose it. They would take that person in isolation in Entebbe here or in Murago, and then inform you that the person has died and you cannot see the person. You arrange, then they bring the person. You can't touch the person. They allow 1 or 2 people to do rituals, but dressed in gloves. It is traumatic to lose a close person and you can't bury. And that is the African thing. But when you bury your person, you get spiritual satisfaction that you have handed him or her over to the ancestors. Yet now in the lockdown, we had stress. We didn't have enough money, so we had poor nutrition, and those bring low immunity. Low immunity exposes us to diseases, and especially even COVID. So when you had the patient, he was quarantined, so you worried, you had anxiety. I talked to a person, a woman, whose husband was taken into quarantine, And I discovered that now society focuses on the man and ignores the wife. The wife who is left at home waiting for a phone call, either you have died or you have survived, not knowing what to do, fearing to tell the children because the children will be traumatized, fearing to tell the neighbors because they will start stopping their children from playing with your children, fearing to tell in-laws because they will spread the news and then the children will get to know, then the neighbors will get to know. You see, dying with it, that trauma, fearing stigma. Then, of course, the bereavement challenges. You know, if your husband dies and he has been the breadwinner, how will you manage? All those were there, increasing stress. And this stress had no relief valves. So family violence, harsh parenting, community violence, because the violence in the family spread in the community. People solved their issues through fights. And I'm sure even the recent Bobi Wine riots had a hangover from that frustration of the lockdown. So we had divorces, and now in China, they have crafted a law after the lockdown. No person, no court is supposed to hear a divorce case until after a 30-day cooling down. They think partners will cool down and think twice. So that there can be. So we are also getting used to the new normal. There is frustration of internet. You need data. Those who are working from home, you need the tools. Some of us discovered our computers were not good enough. Our phones were not good enough. You need now that creates a divide between those who knew to navigate through the internet and those who don't know. So the businesses of those who know are thriving. The business of those who are learning are not. We have power stability, the cost of power. We have fraud and conmen taking advantage to teach you, and we have also digital dating. And even the soaps that are there are affecting families. We have to isolate from friends. We have to get a new lifestyle because bars and gyms and clubs have not been there. And then there is a fundamental need to belong that is clashing with isolation. So then there is disability care. Most of our disabilities are taken to institutions, but institutions closed. So we had people who can't see, people who can't walk, people who can't talk, and the parents are starting to learn how to live with them. So the new normal brought in the developed world a difference. The developed world, the research has found that many young people are deciding not to marry because of coronavirus. They are saying, let me postpone marriages. But in Africa, many instead are deciding to marry, thinking they will die before they get children. But the kind of marriage that is cohabiting. So we have lack of marriages in developed world and cohabiting down here. Then we have adjustment for couples who are seeking extramarital comfort. Those ones I talked about, those who draw happiness from friends as outside the marriage, from clubs, investment clubs, from churches, from fellowships. Those give them fulfillment more than the husband. But now without them, they have to adjust and start getting it from the husband and blame games and stuff like that. So the post-lockdown focus is on the economy, is on business, is on infrastructure, is on the new normal. But there is little focus on rehabilitating the family, on cushioning the family, on mental health and their infrastructure. As a result, we are likely to keep in a longer hangover of the COVID lockdown. But I entreat that, yes, we couldn't stop the virus, but we can stop its effects. And for that matter, we need to protect the family. Finally, after conquering the world, the family will take care of your grave. You'll come back home. So I wish you success I put that picture of a family struggling to balance itself. But that is how families are. But when COVID comes in, it adds in another variable. And so we will need more support, especially from the pillars that support families to recover from this. It's a high climb, and I wish you success. Thank you very much. So I will take a few questions. I'm sorry I ramble on. For me, when I'm on Love Matters, I don't look at the clock, because even in your home, if you're having sex and you keep looking at the watch, you might not survive. So you need to think love, and the time will come later. So I will take some few questions.
Members physically here and those on virtual, please join me to thank Dr. Love for such a nourishing presentation. Thank you, Dr. Love. You may opt to take your questions seated or standing, whichever is comfortable. Yeah, welcome. Members, please keep the questions coming. We already have some questions that have come in. Yes, Dr. Love. The very first one that came through was saying that, don't you think the COVID people are rushing into COVID weddings and they may end up into bad marriages? That was one question. Then the other question is about blame game between parents and the quarrels. What's the best way to live in harmony? You could take two questions at a time, answer those, then we come up with the next. Thank you. It's okay, you can feel comfortable.
Or maybe you prefer I stand, because it's okay.
You've been standing for quite a while.
Yeah?
You've been standing for quite a while.
Okay. About the best way to live in harmony, we need to go back to the pillars that I started with, the pillars that support a family. You need to work on the individual. You need to work on the ambience of the family members. You need to work on the economy. You need to work on those pillars because a family will fall if it's not supported. A family is like it exists on polos, on pillars of society, because it's a basic unit, but it can't support itself. I have a hope that if we are to craft an institutional response to salvage the family, we must think through the pillars I started with. Now, about rushed COVID weddings. Fortunately, my experience as a counselor is that the beauty of marriage is that a marriage gives you a longer opportunity to make it work. We have seen people who everyone thought would not manage come together, but because of the motivation. So a bad marriage may not necessarily be because of the beginning, because of the type of wedding. You can wed even people who are cross-generational, reach there as long as there is motivation, they can make it work. Social development in terms of well-being is such that even when you fall through the mainstream train that is taking you to acceptable social development, like you fall out of school because you are pregnant, when you go outside, you can give birth, but you find another line that makes you even succeed much more than those who remained in the mainstream. So we cannot blame rushed COVID weddings. My only problem with COVID weddings is the insistence on scientific wedding. First of all, the planning begins in conflict with a man and a woman not agreeing on who comes from your side, because you need only 50 people. So you bring 25, me I have 30, me I have 20.
So they clash on against this. But ultimately, the most important argument is that you people who have been in marriage, you know that marriage is not easy. You need pillars, and one of the pillars is society. You need people who will demand marriage from you. You need people who will frown when you're failing. You need people who will ask what happened. Sometimes those people help us to stay in bad marriages, and we stay there long enough to make it work. So when you invite few people to witness your wedding, you are creating very few stakeholders. And so you can easily break that marriage. Because after all, some people didn't know you got married. If you invite 100 people, you have 100 stakeholders who are there, who will ask what is happening, who will have an interest in the marriage. If you have 10,000 people, you have a lot of stakeholders. In Europe, they look more about resources and so invite very few people. And I'm sure it partly contributes to the high divorce rates because you create very few stakeholders to support the marriage. And then the question on parenthood versus parentcraft. Parenthood is the ability of having children and heading a family by being a father, by being a mother, by being called daddy, by being called mommy. And some people, especially in Central region, call you mama so and so, tata so and so. That is parenthood. When they call a meeting of parents, you come because you are a parent. But parentcraft is the art. You see, the president of Uganda becomes a good president not because he puts resources where they are supposed to be. When you do that, you fail as a president. You become a president by balancing interest groups, interest forces. Make sure every interest group is happy or comfortable or living in hope. So you put resources where each one will feel part of the country. As a parent, it may be very prudent, and maybe this is good information for accountants. In your accountant information, it may be very prudent to put this money in buying this plot because it makes economic sense. But it may not make social sense. That money may be needed in keeping the family comfortable by buying the wife a nice dress for Christmas and paying school fees for children. Because what's the use of land when they are dropping out of school? So you need to balance forces. So parentcraft is the ability to keep the both balancing as a head of a family. But also as a mother, if you are not the head of a family, I can give you a personal experience. One time, my wife left the country for some time, and I stayed alone with the children. You see, in the previous arrangement, when children misbehaved, the man, you would say, if you don't come home by 9 o'clock, I will kill you. So the kid comes at 10. Meaning that you either kill the kid or your threats will look like a chicken comb, very cold. But when you have a mother, the mother can come and say, your father was going to kill you if it was not for me to convince him not to kill you. Maybe the kid can say, I have a tough father, by the way, he can kill me. So discipline might need politics and a lot of manipulation and like, that is parentcraft, keeping kids disciplined, but also keeping yourselves disciplined. So parentcraft is maybe not learned in school. It is a product of maturity, determination, ability to learn, ability to, and also having focus on what you want the family to be. I think I am sure, I don't know if I'm clear on that one. Parentcraft is for everybody who is a parent. You can have parenthood without parentcraft. Then
It's okay. You can.
I
proceed.
can see questions
Yeah.
here.
Yes.
Instead of a man claiming to reignite from outside wedlock, can the wife be encouraged to be continuously appetizing by physical appearance and sexual tactics?
He didn't put his name, otherwise that's likely from a gentleman, I believe. It has a
It
gender.
looks like female.
Ah, okay.
I didn't go through to solutions, but this is a solution. But why should it be the wife only? Because the wives also get bored with monotony. I think both of you must keep firing yourselves up. Otherwise, you will gravitate into monotony, and then it will be more fun elsewhere. The first battalion to capture in marriage is to be the preferred choice of fun. That is what we lose usually. Once you are not the preferred choice of fun, of happiness by your partner, then you're creating problems for your partner and for yourself. Because for you, you are on that curve of selfishness. You're thinking of yourself. How does it work for me? You lock out your partner. So you become a less preferred source of fun. So the partner goes to friends, goes to workmates, goes to internet, goes to football, and then when they get tempted there, because everyone has his breaking point, when they get tempted, we blame them. Because for me, when I'm counseling and there is a situation of infidelity, I first look at your personal role in this. Everyone has a personal role. Or ideally, your partner was not supposed to cheat, but they cheated. So how much could you have contributed to it? Although we don't do that blame game, but we must first find the cause in order to have a lasting good solution. So that solution is good, but it should be for both ways. While the wife is looking for change, innovation in bed, the man must also look for innovation in bed. And you must desist from asking, "Ako wakayigidewa? Ngasi kamanyi, gato kakolanga." You are blocking innovation and you are biting the finger that feeds you. Baba yakayigide elsewhere, it is too late to stop it. You benefit also from that infidelity.
Thank you very much, Dr. Love. I think the members are really feeling happy that the Institute invited you today. But before we close, I have one more question. Dr. Love, out of this pandemic, aren't there any positives that have occurred that some people, maybe whatever percentage, would really love this pandemic to stay a bit longer? And there are some positives.
Yes, of course, we see people building houses, buying a lot of land. There was a lot of money, but it went one side. There are people we are talking about. I talked about the negatives because of time, but there are people who bonded further, bonded more, understood each other by increased exposure. They understood each other. There are people who learned new skills, especially of working from home. I also work from home, and thanks to New Vision, it gave me Wi-Fi, so everyone at home can access free internet. And I cheat them a lot. I can come and give a talk today. They think I'm at home and they say, "Where is this?" I say, we don't have power. Power has gone. Yet I'm in Entebbe giving a talk. So those things are there, working from home and stuff like that. They are positives. But for us in journalism, we think the positives don't make as much news as the negatives. People want to listen to you when a man has beaten a dog, not when a dog has beaten a man. Otherwise, the positives are there. But The negatives, when you look at the whole country or even the whole world, the negatives are tending to outweigh the positives. And as I concluded, the focus on rehabilitating the world out of the COVID pandemic is on infrastructure, is on the economy, is on the politics. Those will have an indirect rehabilitational effect on the family. But we could also do better by focusing on the family, by rebuilding the pillars that build the family and society. Because people in families need support to have good families. It does not come as a matter of course. It requires supportive pillars. It requires a good atmosphere. It requires a good context to have a good family. And unfortunately, these families, as we said, will determine the future. A bad family now or bad families now will be disaster and catastrophe for the future.
Thank you, Hillary. And I want to assure you that bank supervisors are like newsmen. When I go to examine a bank and I make my report of examination, I don't talk about the many good things that I've found in that institution, but I do exception reporting. Everything is good, except there's this problem, there's these risks that have come up. So even us, because so many good things are supposed to be there, but we do exception reporting, so we highlight just where there needs to be attention changes. Thank you very much. Members, physically here in Entebbe and who have joined us virtually, I want to thank you so much for being a good audience. But before I hand over to the Master of Ceremony, please join me with a hand clap to thank our presenter today. Dr. Love, who has ably talked to us about the impact of COVID-19 on the family and social networks. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much, members, especially those online. I would see people are very attentive. This matter called DAV is serious. Very, very serious. Actually, in lockdown, I realized I had good kids. That's when I understood what it means to have a family. Initially, they didn't know I was good in the kitchen because I'm always up and down in the field. You're hustling to make sure you bring food on the table for the team. That is when all my cooking skills came out and everyone keeps saying, Mommy, when do you stay home again? But unfortunately, we have to keep life moving. Let's all join our hands and thank Dr. Love. I think we've all been awake. We've tried to be awake so that we listen to what it takes. Dr. Love, there's one thing I wanted. I'm sorry, I'll take you a bit back. What you see, many of the incest you're talking about actually happened. I have a friend who happens to have got a kid whose cousin brother had sex with her. The mother cried for weeks, and up to now, the daughter has not gotten over it. I think where we are heading as New Vision, as part of corporate social responsibility, because you're part of the columnists in New Vision, we need to see how we help. Even the Institute, we should develop corporate social responsibility, where we come up with teams of boys to men and girls to women to understand what does it take for one, what is the impact of you sleeping with your sister. It's that alarming that I think nobody is bothered, and we are all moving on, and life is normal. When they report the man who molested your daughter, you sit down, get compensated somehow, and you close the matter, but the victim cannot go on in life. We've seen this lady, the pastor, up to now, she's still talking about how the father raped her during childhood. It means it was not managed at that level. So Dr. Love, we thank you so much. Back here, we need to observe the SOPs. Please put on your masks as very well. Some of you, because you're social distancing, you think you are in a good environment. Please put on your masks. COVID is real, people are dying. We are losing loved ones. We are going to go for lunch. When you meet a sanitizer bottle, please sanitize. If you happen to get water, wash your hands. We are going to have lunch outside, and I think we shall need to pray for our meal. I don't know, the session chair will offer us a prayer for our meal, and we go for lunch. Then we shall assemble here for the afternoon session at 2:15. Thank you.
Members, before you go, let's humble ourselves and we pray for our meal. Almighty Father, we thank you for this day that you brought us here together, and that your providence is abundant. We are going for a meal. Not many families in this country can afford. We praise you, we bless you, and glorify your name for your level of providence. This we pray in the mighty name of our Lord Jesus Christ.